Hello. Thank you for joining me for this evening's meditation and Sutra study. Tonight's practice will consist of a 15-minute guided meditation, a reading from the Awakening of Faith Sutra, or Dharma talk, followed by a Q&A. I'm Sensei Alex Kakio, and these teachings are offered free of charge. But if you'd like to make a contribution, information for PayPal and CashApp are in the description for this talk. And if you'd like to do a deep dive into Buddhist training, check out my book, Perfectly Ordinary Buddhist Teachings for Everyday Life. It's available on Amazon, and there's a link to a sample chapter of the book also in the description for this talk. So, I'll give you a moment to settle in before we begin the guided meditation for this evening. The only rule is that you need to be comfortable in a position where you can breathe freely and that you can not move for approximately 15 minutes. If this is your first time meditating, you can start by taking your left hand, putting it palm up in your lap, taking your right hand, putting it palm up atop the left hand. Back is straight. Eyes can be closed or half closed. If you want them half closed, have them pointed downwards at a 45-degree angle. This helps to eliminate visual distractions. And again, we'll be sitting for about 15 minutes. I'll keep time. No need to worry about that. And we'll start, as we always do, with the breath. Breathing in and out through the nose. Slowly, gently. This meditative breath in and out through the nose sends signals to our body that we're calm, that we can relax. And it's okay for us to do nothing for just a little while. Then we're going to add to that. With every inhale, we'll push out our belly button ever so slightly. And with every exhale, we'll relax. This allows our diaphragm to drop into our stomach cavity, giving us a good lung full of air. The deeper breathing, along with the breathing through the nose, helps us drop into a deeper state of meditation. And one final step. We're not going to try and clear our minds. But if our minds wander, we'll simply say hello to our thoughts. And then bring our focus back to our breath. Focusing on the physical sensation of the air moving in and out of our lungs. The expansion and contractions of our belly. And we're going to do this for just 2 minutes. I'll keep time. Just breathe in and breathe out. Wonderful. Now we're going to keep this breath going. And as we're breathing, we're going to add a visualization to part of the exercise. In Buddhism, we're taught that the seat of our spiritual energy is in our hara, which is in our belly. It's in the space behind our belly button. So we're going to focus on that space and envision a ball of energy, a fire, burning in our belly. If our favorite color is blue, the energy is blue. If our favorite color is red, the energy is red. Use whatever color helps you focus most easily. And with every inhale, we bring in air through our nostrils into our lungs. And with every exhale, we visualize ourselves blowing on that fire, just like we would a campfire in the woods, making it bigger and brighter with every breath. And we're going to do this for about 2 minutes. We're just going to breathe on the fire of our spirituality, building it up within us. If our mind wanders, that's okay. We simply focus on our thoughts, or say hello to our thoughts, rather. And bring our focus back to the breathing and to the visualization. Good job. Now we'll continue with the visualization. Imagine we're sending a channel of energy down, down, down to the center of the earth. And once we get there, we find an energy identical to our own. The spiritual energy in our belly is orange. The energy of the earth is orange. The energy in our belly is purple. The earth's energy is purple. When Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree and realized his enlightenment, He touched the earth and said, "The earth bears witness for me." It bears witness for us as well. So we're going to pull some of that earth energy up into ourselves. Visualizing with every inhale, we're pulling energy up from the center of the earth into our hara. And with every exhale, we're blowing on that energy just like we've been doing, making it even bigger and even brighter. Noticing that even as we pull energy from the earth is never depleted. The more it gives, the more it has to give. And we'll do this for about a minute. I'll keep time, no need to worry about that. If your mind wanders, that's okay. Simply say hello to your thoughts. And bring your focus back to your breathing and to the visualization. Wonderful. You guys are doing so well, sitting so quietly, so still. Strengthening your spiritual power. Now for the next step, we'll imagine a second channel of energy going up, up, up from our belly, from our hara, past our solar plexus, past our throat, past our mouth, up to the top of our head. And what we're going to do is breathe in and pull spiritual energy up from the earth into our hara. With every inhale, and with every exhale, we're going to push that energy up, 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 up the top of our heads, till it explodes like a volcano, showering every inch of us in spiritual light and healing earth energy. We can do this anytime, anywhere, but we're going to take a few moments, a few minutes, two in fact, to do that now. I'll keep time, no need to worry about that. Just breathe in, pull the earth energy up into your hara, into your belly. With the inhale, exhale, push it up at the top of your head. Shower yourself in healing light. And just do that. Just breathe for 2 minutes. If your mind wanders, that's okay. Just say hello to your thoughts. Bring your focus back to your breath and to the visualization. Great work. Meditation is wonderful. It's an important part of spiritual practice. It's one of the methods Buddha used to realize his own enlightenment. However, now it's time to bring our meditation to a close. So we'll do that by slowly, gently imagining the energy channel going from the top of our head. And we imagine that energy getting smaller until it doesn't reach the top of our head. And then it barely reaches our mouth, barely reaches our throat, barely reaches our solar plexus, smaller and smaller, until it's sitting right there in that space behind our belly button. And we continue to breathe in and out through the nose. And then we take the energy channel and goes to the center of the earth. Maybe we do a mental bow saying thank you to the earth for helping us in our practice. And then we draw that energy channel up into ourselves, up, up, up. Reminding ourselves that the earth is always there to call upon if we need. Now we just breathe. Reminding ourselves again that the spiritual energy in our heart is always there, feeding us and guiding us whenever we need. Now we slowly come back into our bodies, leaning our head to the left, and then to the right, then to the left, back and forth gently. And then we come back to center. And if our eyes are closed when we're ready, and only when we're ready, we open them. I'll give you about 30 seconds to do that. Wonderful. Thank you so much for sitting with me this evening. It's always good when you can sit together in a group like that. It strengthens our practice. Now it's time to start the reading from the Sutra. Tonight we'll be reading from the Awakening of Faith Sutra. It's a text written by an Indian Buddhist monk by the name of Avagosa. And what's really great about this text is it explains a lot of the core tenets of Mahayana Buddhism. The Two Truths doctrine, original enlightenment, the storehouse consciousness. It's all here. And we'll be going over that in the next 6 weeks. Some things you should know. Again, this isn't the Buddha speaking. This is an Indian Buddhist philosopher by the name of Avagosa. And it's a little bit different because what the translator has done is he's placed notes throughout the sutra. His name is Yoshito S. Hakeda. He's placed notes throughout the sutra in order to better explain some of the tenets and the teachings that Avagosa gives us. So I'll be reading the words of Avagosa. I'll also be reading the translator's notes as well, differentiating between the two, because I think Hakeda does a good job of explaining things and making them more clear. The reading comes from the BDK English Tripitaka translation of the Awakening of Faith Sutra. Not necessary to have a copy for this class, but if you want to follow along, it can be helpful. And tonight's reading will come from page 11 in the text, chapter 1, Revelation of True Meaning. One mind in its two aspects. The revelation of the true meaning of the principle of the Mahayana can be achieved by unfolding the doctrine that the principle of one mind has two aspects. One is the aspect of mind in terms of the absolute, tathata, suchness, and the other is the aspect of mind in terms of phenomena, samsara, birth, death. Each of these two aspects embraces all states of existence. Why? Because these two aspects are mutually inclusive. That's key, remember that. Then there's a translator's note. The most authoritative interpreter, Fa Zhang, defines one mind as the Tathagata Garbha. It should be noted that one is used to indicate absolute in the sense of one without any second, not one among many. On one mind, see the introduction. Because these two aspects are mutually inclusive, reality is conceived as the intersection of the absolute order and the phenomenal order. Therefore, it contains in itself both the absolute and the phenomenal order at once. The absolute order is thought to be transcendental and yet is conceived as not being outside of the phenomenal order. Again, the phenomenal order is thought to be temporal and yet is conceived as not being outside of the absolute order. Also key. In other words, they are ontologically identical. They are two aspects of one and the same reality. Perhaps the most famous and simplest statement of the relationship between the absolute and the phenomenal order can be found in the sayings of Nagarjuna, 2nd century CE, e.g., there is no difference whatsoever between nirvana, absolute, and samsara, phenomena. There is no difference whatsoever between samsara and nirvana. The mind in terms of the absolute. The mind in terms of the absolute is the one world of reality, dharma dhatu, and the essence of all phases of existence in their totality. Translator's note. Fa Zhang says of the phrase in their totality, because the two aspects of one mind, i.e. the absolute aspect and the phenomenal aspect, are not differentiated, but include each other, the words in their totality are used. The one world of reality is nothing but the world of samsara. At the same time, the world of samsara is nothing but the world of the absolute. In order to indicate these meanings, the essence, which is the same in both aspects, is mentioned. That which is called the essential nature of the mind is unborn and imperishable. This is back to Avagosa. It is only through illusions that all things come to be differentiated. If one is freed from illusions, then to him there will be no appearances of objects regarded as absolute, independent existences. Therefore, all things from the beginning transcend all forms of verbalization, description, and conceptualization, and are, in the final analysis, undifferentiated, free from alteration, and indestructible. They are only of the one mind, hence the name suchness. All explanation by words are provisional and without validity, for they are merely used in accordance with illusions and are incapable of denoting suchness. The term suchness, likewise, has no attributes, which can be verbally specified. The term suchness is, so to speak, the limit of verbalization wherein a word is used to put an end to words. But the essence of suchness itself cannot be put an end to. For all things in their absolute aspect are real, nor is there anything which needs to be pointed out as real. For all things are equally in the state of suchness. It should be understood that all things are incapable of being verbally explained or thought of, hence the name suchness. Translator's note. Unborn is a technical term used in the sense of beyond time determination. For further discussion on unborn, see page 58. The statement that the absolute transcends all modes of thought is constantly repeated in the Buddhist scriptures and commentaries. The ideas expressed in the preceding several lines are found in terse presentation in the following passage by Nagarjuna. While the object of thought is absent, predication ceases, for just as in the case of nirvana, the essential nature of all things, dharma to dharma sabhava, which is neither born nor perishes, cannot be predicated. In regard to the sentence, the term suchness is, so to speak, the limit of verbalization wherein a word is used to put an end to words. A Korean monk, Won Yo, in his commentary on this text written in the early part of the 8th century says, "It's just as though one stops the voices with a voice." Following this comment by Won Yo, Fan Zhang says, "It is just like saying, be quiet. If this voice were not there, other voices would not be made to cease." The term suchness, tathata, is symbolic. It is an index to that which is transcendental. It is a provisional device of language on the conceptual plane used in an attempt to establish some sort of communication in a realm where all verbal communication fails. And then we're back to Avagosa. Question: if such is the meaning of the principle of the Mahayana, how is it possible for people to conform themselves to and enter into it? Answer: if they understand that concerning all things, though they are spoken of, there is neither that which speaks, nor that which can be spoken of, and though they are thought of, there is neither that which thinks, nor that which can be thought of, then they are said to have conformed to it. And when they are freed from their thoughts, they are said to have entered into it. Next, suchness has two aspects if predicated in words. One is that it is truly empty, shunya, for this aspect can, in the final sense, reveal what is real. The other is that it is truly non-empty, anshunya, for its essence itself is endowed with undefiled and unexcelled qualities. Translator's note: to paraphrase, in more familiar terms, shunya approach may be replaced by negative approach, which rejects any affirmative identification of the absolute with any mode of thought, and ashunya approach by positive approach, which affirms the absolute by means of its attributes and influences. The two approaches are regarded in the text as complementary. Back to Avagosa. Truly empty. Suchness is empty. Because from the beginning it has never been related to any defiled states of existence, it is free from all marks of individual distinction of things, and it has nothing to do with thoughts conceived by a deluded mind. It should be understood that the essential nature of suchness is neither with marks nor without marks, neither not with marks nor not without marks, nor is it both with and without marks simultaneously. It is neither with a single mark nor with different marks, neither not with a single mark nor not with different marks, nor is it both with a single mark with different marks simultaneously. Translator's note: this effort at negation of any predication of the essential nature of suchness is typical of Buddhist ways of thought since early times. Beginning with the famous silence of the Buddha on questions such as whether the universe is permanent or impermanent, or whether the universe is limited or unlimited, this attitude has been maintained by Buddhist thinkers, in particular in a group of sutras known as the Prajnaparamita, or Perfection of Wisdom Sutras. This is the Heart Sutra. The oldest stratum of which belongs to the formative stage of Mahayana Buddhism in the form or 2nd century BCE, the negative approach was ruthlessly emphasized. Nagarjuna formulated on the basis of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras the pattern for refuting any false identification of that which is beyond, so that the absolute remains absolute and is not brought down to the level of the finite. He gives 4 alternative predications in order to show the absurdity of affirming any of them. The basic alternatives are two, being and non-being, i.e. affirmation and negation. Based on these two alternatives, two more predications are possible by affirming or denying both at once, both being and non-being, and neither being nor non-being. These four alternatives are negated in the beginning of the sentence. Further elaborations follow. Back to Avagosa. In short, since all enlightened people discriminate with their deluded minds from moment to moment, they are alienated from suchness. Hence the definition empty. But once they are free from their deluded minds, they will find there is nothing to be negated. Truly non-empty. Since it has been made clear that the essence of all things is empty, i.e. devoid of illusions, the true mind is eternal, permanent, immutable, pure, and self-sufficient. Therefore, it is called non-empty. And also, there is no trace of particular marks to be noted in it, as it is in the sphere that transcends thoughts and is in harmony with enlightenment alone. Translator's note. This is one of the applications of the method of argument known as affirmation is negation and negation is affirmation. For example, to say that this is a pen is to deny that it is a teacup. To say that this is not blue is to affirm that this is some color other than blue. To say that suchness is empty is to suggest that suchness is something which defies any conceptualization, i.e. to say that suchness is not this, not that, etc. is to say that suchness is transcendental, empty of concepts. But this negation does not exclude the possibility of suchness being seen elsewhere, or from different view or order from which one is not accustomed. Hence, there is room to present suchness if it is done symbolically, as eternal, permanent, immutable, etc. Emptiness does not mean non-existence. Another key point. Literally, it is usually used in the sense of empty of or devoid of a distinct, absolute, independent, permanent, individual entity or being as an irreducible component in a pluralistic world, or of empty of all predications. According to this way of thinking, even non-being is a being, as it is contingent upon being. The term empty results from a dialectic consciousness of transcending this dichotomy of being and non-being. In order to prevent the danger of interpreting emptiness as non-being or as an avocation of nihilism, Nagarjuna says emptiness, shunyata, ill-conceived, destroys a stupid person, as would a snake when handled improperly, or a spell badly executed. So there was a lot there today. What does it all mean? Well, to explain it, I'm first going to tell you a little story. And before we get into that, please don't forget to like this video if it's helpful to you, and subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. That way you'll be notified when I post live streams in the future. So when I was a kid, I was very involved in the Boy Scouts of America. I started off in Webelos, and I worked my way up until the time I was 18. I was an Eagle Scout, which is the highest rank you can achieve in Boy Scouts of America. And it was a very important organization in my life, very formative to my youth. Going on camping trips, earning merit badges, learning responsibility. You know, when you forget your mittens or your gloves and now your hands are cold at winter camp, you learn that you have to remember to bring your gloves or there are consequences. Now, in the Boy Scouts, there were 3 things you had to do in order to be taken seriously by the other members of your troop. You had to be able to do orienteering, which means find your way through the woods using a map and compass. You had to be able to pitch a tent or build some sort of other shelter to sleep in, like a lean-to. And finally, you had to be able to build a fire, either with matches or preferably without matches, using your glasses or magnifying glass, things of that nature. And a lot of people don't realize this, but there is a real art and science when it comes to building a fire when you're on a camping trip. You're not just putting a lighter to a piece of paper or rubbing two sticks together. You start off with kindling. So you sit there and you shave off little flakes of wood from a stick, very thin, very small, so that they'll light quickly. Maybe use some dryer lint to get the thing started. And you pile all of that in the middle. And then you either build a lean-to or a log cabin around that pile of kindling, because you want the kindling to catch fire, and then that then gets the smaller sticks to catch fire. But you don't just throw it all in. You have to stack it in a very specific way so that the fire can get oxygen and it'll get bigger. Then as the fire grows, you put bigger and bigger pieces of wood on until finally it's really big, fat logs. And now you have a fire that you can cook with or just use for warmth. But even with that fire, you have to be smart. I melted boots when I was a kid because I was cold and I stuck them too close to the flame, so the rubber soles of the boots melted. Lots of kids lost mittens or gloves because they put them over the fire to dry and the gloves fell in. You're kids, you do silly things. So after you built the fire, you had to be able to use it skillfully. If you get too close, if you try to grab onto the flames, you burn yourself. If you get too far away, however, you can't cook food, you get cold. So there's this skill necessary to build the fire, and then you also have to work with it in a very intelligent way. And you have to know when and how to put the fire out. So one of the rules was you never leave a fire unattended. Someone's always there watching it. You always have a bucket of water nearby. If it gets out of control, you can pour the water on there and put the fire out. If there's no water available, you just throw dirt on it, right? So there are lots of things involved in this. So what does this have to do with the two aspects of mind? The empty aspect and the non-empty aspect of mind, or I could say the conventional aspect and the absolute aspect. Well, to understand how this works, we have to understand how a fire works. We build the fire. We have kindling, we have sticks, we light it on fire, then we work with that flame skillfully so that we can cook, so that we can get heat without harming ourselves. All of that which I just described is the absolute world. Or sorry, that's the conventional world. That's what we see, taste, touch, etc. The absolute world, however, is the heat that comes off of that fire. The heat that allows us to cook our food. The heat that allows us to be warm, even though it's 3 feet of snow outside. The heat that allows us to enjoy ourselves, even though it's a cold, windy day in December. So when we talk about the two aspects of mind, the non-empty part and the empty part, what we're talking about is the fire and the heat that comes from that fire. Now, it's important in the text, Avagosa tells us that these two things aren't separate. The absolute and the conventional world are one thing. In the same way that the fire and the heat that comes from that fire are also one and the same. It'd be very strange and silly of us to try to get the heat from the fire without the fire itself. Or if I told you I was going to build a fire, but that fire is going to be cold, well, that wouldn't make much sense either. In the same way, when we talk about the absolute and the conventional, when we talk about the non-empty aspects of reality and the empty aspects of reality, we are talking about the flame and the heat from that flame. They're one and the same. Two aspects of one object in reality. Now we separate them out because we need to do that. We need to know the difference between the heat and the flame, between the flame and the wood, between the wood and the dryer lint we're using for kindling. Those are the illusions that we create in our minds, and they're good and they're useful, but we have to work with those illusions skillfully in order to enjoy the heat. Buddhist practice is nothing more than us learning to use the conventional world skillfully so that we can understand the absolute aspects of the world. The bowing, the chanting, the meditation, the sutra studying, that's us putting the kindling down. That's us shaving the stick to get flakes of wood. That's us stacking the wood in a teepee or in a log cabin so that there's oxygen that will get to the fire. That's us striking the match. And when we do all of that over and over again, 10,000 times, either at home in our own practice or in the temple or in our Sangha, our digital Sangha, what happens is we experience the absolute. We experience the heat from that fire. And what does that heat allow us to do? It allows us to survive in a world that is extremely cold, that is not comforting, that is hurtful at times. If you prepare for winter camp successfully, which I did not always do as a kid, but if you prepare successfully, if you build the fire well, you can be very comfortable in very cold temperatures. I remember one time it got down to -10, and we had a great time because we were prepared, because we were working with the fire skillfully. Life is no different. When we talk about the first noble truth, when we say life is suffering, that can be a very scary thing, or it can be a motivating thing. Life is suffering, so I need to do my spiritual practice. Life is suffering, so I need to make time to sit on the cushion today. I need to make time to chant, because that's how I experience the warmth of the absolute, which is not separate from the conventional world. Another way to understand the relation between the absolute and the conventional, between the non-empty aspects of reality and the empty aspects of reality, is to think of the yin-yang symbol. We have the white portion and we have the black portion, and they kind of circle each other. But then we have a dot of black that's in the white, and we have a dot of white that's in the black. Why? Because they're not separate. They're one and the same. They're complementary, one to the other. So what Avagosa is trying to get us to understand about our own minds is that we have these illusions, and they're fine. We need them. But if we don't work with those illusions skillfully, they separate us from the absolute. In the same way that if a group of Boy Scouts does not work skillfully with their fire, they can burn themselves, they can damage their clothing, they can start a forest fire. Buddhism, all it is, learning to work with the conventional world skillfully so that we can gain warmth from the absolute. And then we use the warmth from the absolute to do what? To work with the conventional world more skillfully. Because once we build that fire up and we're fed and we're warm on our camping trip, what's the next step? We go out into the woods and we gather more firewood for the next night's fire. Now we can do that while we're cold and hungry, but I'd rather have some food in my stomach. I'd rather be warm and comfortable. I'd rather have my heavy winter coat and my heavy boots and my multiple layers of long johns to keep me warm. And that's what Buddhist practice is. So the reason the Awakening of Faith Sutra is so important is because it helps us understand the foundation of this spiritual practice. It helps us understand the why. In the same way, you have to understand why you stack the wood in a very specific way when you're building a fire. We have to understand the why. Why do I have to bow 108 times in front of the altar? Why do we sit on the cushion without moving, even though our face itches and our legs hurt? Why do we chant Nimbutsu? This is the why. So that we can use these conventional practices, and that's what they are, conventional practices. Buddhism is an illusion, just like everything else. But we use them skillfully to understand the absolute. And we use the absolute to work more skillfully with the conventional. It's a circle. It's a cycle. Buddhism is, there's lots of cycles in Buddhism, lots of circles. One other thing, and then I'll end, because I'm thinking about the 12-link chain of dependent origination. Now, it starts with what? It starts with ignorance. Now, there's two aspects to ignorance. There's greed, anger, and ignorance, which are the three poisons caused by clinging, the sources of all our suffering in the conventional world. And that ignorance is ignorance of the conventional world. It's us not knowing how to build fire. We're so caught up in the mind of desire. We're so caught up in our clinging that we don't see that, oh, I'm causing harm to myself. I'm causing harm to other people. So we act unskillfully. There's also ignorance of the absolute, which Avagosa discussed. We get so caught up in the conventional world that we forget about the absolute. We get so caught up in trying to build the fire that we don't know how to deal skillfully with the heat. I remember one time I was at scout camp and one kid had the bright idea to throw gasoline on the fire. Gasoline is very combustible. It's very flammable. And it's not just the liquid gasoline that burns, it's the fumes as well. So we were kids, so I should mention that, but he tried to throw a cup of gasoline on the fire to see what would happen. It got very big, very bright, the fire did. Thankfully, no one was hurt, but we could have been burned very seriously. We weren't dealing with the conventional world, in this case, the fire, skillfully, because we were so enraptured with trying to get to the heat that we didn't want to take the time to do things correctly. And sometimes we do this in spiritual practice. We get so caught up in this idea about the absolute, the idea of the unborn, the absolute, the idea of the non-empty aspects of the world, that we try to ignore the conventional. And we cause harm as a result. This is called spiritual bypassing. And unfortunately, it's not uncommon. So we have to be aware of that too. Ignorance of the absolute can be damaging, but ignorance of the conventional is also damaging. We have to deal with both skillfully. We have to learn to deal with both well. And thankfully, we have geniuses like Avagosa to teach us exactly how to do that. Amitabha. So that's the talk for today. I hope it was helpful. Now we will move into the Q&A portion of tonight's chat. If you have questions about what I said, about the reading, comments, or concerns, type them into the chat. I'll be sure to respond. If you have comments you want to share about life in general, or about Buddhism in general, do that as well. And while we're waiting for those to come in, I just have a few announcements. So this is Meditation and Sutra Study. We do it every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard, live streamed at this channel. And we read, first we meditate for 15 minutes. It's a guided meditation. Then we read canonical Buddhist sutras. Right now we're reading the Awakening of Faith Sutra. Then there's a Dharma talk followed by a Q&A. On Sundays, we do Dharma Sunday, which is a little simpler. Also 6:30 p.m. Eastern, also live stream at this channel. And what we do as part of that is I comment on some real-world event using Buddhist teachings, canonical Buddhist texts, and then we also, again, have the Q&A. If you enjoyed tonight's chat, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe, hit the notification bell. I'd appreciate it very much. And that'll notify you when we do live streams in the future. It looks like we have some comments coming in. Admarin said, "Good day, Sensei," with the bow emoji. Good day, Admarin. Good to see you. Cheese said, "Hello, Sensei. I had to write a paper in my Asian philosophy class about the fire sermon. I cited you as a source and I got an A-." Oh, wow. Well, first off, congratulations. A-, that's nothing to shrug at. That's very good. And thank you so much for the vote of confidence. I never thought I'd be cited in a school paper, but wow. Wow, that makes me feel really good. Thank you so much, Cheese. I'm so glad I was able to help you with your paper. I'm glad you got an A-. Keep up the good work. Congratulations. That's awesome. That's awesome. Admarin said, "I have class at 4:30. The teacher really stresses me out. Thank you for pre-class centering. It will help me keep sane this semester." Well, life stresses us out, absolutely. But I'm glad this helps you, Admarin. I'm glad I can be a part of your journey and your practice. The purpose of this is to do things like that, to center people, to help them prepare for stressful situations like a class or a job. So again, thank you for the vote of confidence. I'm so glad I can help you, and best of luck with your teacher. I'm not in school currently, but you know, I went through school in the past, and I know teachers are human beings. They can stress us out, but you'll make it through. And I'm glad I'm able to help. Please let me know if you need anything. Max Taylor said, "Gasho Sensei, I have to leave early today, but thank you for the guided meditation." Well, Gasho, Max, thanks for joining us for the guided meditation. Thanks for joining us for the class, and best of luck with the rest of your day. I'm glad I helped you. Divad Buddha X did the bow emoji. Divad, good to see you again. Thank you. And Allison Gerfin did the bow emoji, the fire emoji, and the blue heart. There's lots of fire today. Thank you, Allison. I appreciate that very much. So, any other comments or questions before we end this evening? So wonderful to have you all here. All right, well, it looks like that's it for this evening. I'll see you guys on Sunday, and if not Sunday, hopefully I'll see you Wednesday. Oh, Allison Griffin said, "Your talk kept me calm while catching 7 loose zebra finches." Oh no! Oh no. Well, I'm glad you were able to catch them. I'm glad I was able to help. I don't have any zebra finches. Let's see. There are 3 cats in the house right now, and they're a handful. And then we also have Opaline Garami. He kind of keeps to himself, but animals can be tough. They're wonderful teachers, but they can be a handful. So Allison, I'm glad your zebra finches are okay, and I'm glad I was able to help. 7, wow, that's a lot. Wonderful, thanks for sharing. Oh, and you said you got them. Great, excellent. I'm glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. Whew. Oh wow, I get stressed out just reading that. I'm glad you're able to get them though. Oh wow, 7 zebra finches. Anything else, guys? All right. Well, thanks so much for joining me. I hope to see you all soon. Amitabha. Until next time.